Let's start off with this. So we found out just going through this case, someone had posted to me on Facebook saying there are additional charges. So we wanted to look and see, was that indeed true? And we found out that on December 30th that there was an indictment that came back for 5 additional charges for Quadejah, obviously murder still being the highest charge. But when we looked at what was filed just 2 days ago, so filed on Monday by her attorney, we're actually learning a whole lot more. We're learning more about the case, we're learning more about her, and some of this stuff is a bit shocking, to be honest. One being
is evidently Carlos may have not gotten the memo. He probably didn't get the memo that the defense is serving him up on a silver platter with the apple with the apple in his mouth. Okay, they're serving that man up on a silver platter because at this point, who else can they get to help them to how else can they get her any reduction of time?
This was filed.
Nobody.
So the initial charge that we knew of was murder with intent to kill, injure with firearm. So since this was filed, there are now 5 additional charges that are mentioned here.
Have you ever followed a case so closely you thought you knew every angle? You've heard the charges, seen the headlines, and formed your own opinion. But what if the most critical chapters of a story are only just being written? What if everything you think you know is about to be turned inside out? This is an update to a story we've been tracking here on True Crime Unravelled, a case that has gripped the nation with its tragic core, the shooting death of Romica Blackmon. We've reported on the arrest of Quadejah Holly Johnson, on the survivor's account from Carlos Smith, on a family's devastating loss. But viewers, buckle up. The legal battle has entered a new, fiercely contested phase, and the twists coming from the defense side are compelling everyone to take a second, harder look. If you think this story was cut and dry, think again. And to our incredible community on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok, True Crime Unravelled TV, we see you. We read every single comment, every theory, every question. You are vital to this conversation. Keep them coming. Tonight, we're connecting the dots on developments that could change the entire trajectory of this case. When we last left this story, Quadejah Holly Johnson was sitting in jail, charged with first-degree murder. The court of public opinion had largely spoken. But in a real courtroom, the narrative is never static. The session on January 7th, 2026, just yesterday, revealed a defense strategy that is far more intricate and aggressive than many anticipated. Ari Williams and her legal team are not just going through the motions. They are fighting tooth and nail for Holly Johnson's pretrial release, and the evidence they are presenting is making that possibility seem less like a fantasy and more like a legitimate legal argument. In our previous coverage, we dissected Ari Williams' initial approach. Now, a new layer has been added. While Ari Williams remains on the team, we have confirmed a significant shift. She is no longer the lead attorney arguing this case in court. That role has been assumed by a veteran attorney named John Murray. This change in command often signals a new tactical direction, and the direction is becoming crystal clear. The defense's central mission right now is to dismantle the state's narrative piece by piece. And their primary target? The credibility of the witnesses. They are hammering, and I mean hammering, on a seemingly small detail with potentially massive implications. They point out that a key witness for the prosecution was wearing noise-canceling headphones during the altercation. Their argument is simple yet powerful. How can you trust a testimony about what was said, about the tone of the confrontation, about the precise sequence of events, if the person recounting it had their hearing physically blocked? This isn't a minor point. It's a direct assault on the foundation of the state's case. And on the other side of this legal tug-of-war, the prosecution has significantly upped the ante. Beyond the initial first-degree murder charge, they have now added 5 more serious counts against Holly Johnson. These include multiple charges of murder with intent to kill or injure with a firearm and murder with strong probability to kill or injure with a firearm. The legal paperwork is dense, but the message is not.
But I saw this question several times on my previous post, so I just want to address it and then be done for the day. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to come on in. Let me gather my stuff so I can prepare to depart. I'll give you guys a few minutes. And then I do want to address the additional charges, because I don't think I mentioned it, and I saw a lot of people in the comments saying, what were the additional charges? What were the additional charges? And I'm the type of person where when I report something, I like to give all the facts. So I think in haste, I negated to mention what the additional charges are. So I do have it pulled up on my computer, and I will tell you what these new charges are. So this is an indictment that came back. It was filed on December 30th. So last Tuesday, I believe that was last Tuesday. Last Tuesday, this was filed. So the initial charge that we knew of was murder with intent to kill, injure with firearm. So since this was filed, there are now 5 additional charges that are mentioned here. So murder, intent to kill, injure, discharge, firearm, murder, intent to kill, injure, discharge, firearm, approximately, and then murder, strong, probable, kill, injure, firearm. And that could also be probability, but I think that's probable, I believe. It's shortened as prob. So I don't want to be held to that because I didn't look any of these charges up. I just wanted to come back on here and update you. So again, it says murder, strong, prob, kill, injure, firearm, murder, strong, prob, kill, injure, discharge, firearm, and then the final charge being murder, strong, prob, kill, injure, discharge, firearm, approximately. So let's go back through them just so you know. And I will check my email as well. I get so many emails. Don't think I'm being rude. Sometimes it's just overwhelming when you're one person trying to make sure you tell as many people's stories as possible. Okay, so again, the updated charges are as follows. We already knew about the murder, intent to kill, injure with firearm. These are the additional charges that are now mentioned. Murder, intent to kill, injure, discharge, firearm. Murder, intent to kill, injure, discharge, firearm, approximately. Murder, strong, prob, kill, injure, firearm. Murder, strong, prob, kill, injure, discharge, firearm. Murder, strong, prob, kill, injure, discharge, firearm, approximately. So those are the new charges. Let me look at one thing. Hold on. So I can be factual on this, and then I'm going to go. I just want to double check something. Trying to see how they classify these charges. And in the state of Illinois, by them being considered Class M, those charges appear to all be felonies. So just wanted to give that update because you guys were asking in my previous post. Some of the things that are said, I just glaze over because they're so ignorant. But that was a valid question because I did leave that on a cliffhanger. I only said that there were, let's see, what did I say? I think I said there were only, I just merely said there were 5 additional new charges, but I didn't go into what those charges were. So I just wanted you guys to know what they are. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I just wanted you guys to know what the new charges consisted of. So thank you so much for tuning in. I just wanted to give you an update because I thought that was a valid question. So thank you so much. Stay up, never down. Bye-bye.
The state is throwing the entire book at her, convinced the evidence justifies the maximum pursuit of justice. So, what is in this defense filing that has everyone talking? Thanks to reporter Tia Ewing of Fox 32, who obtained the full 20-page motion, we can see the blueprint. This document isn't just a request, it's a story. The story of Quadejah Holly Johnson, as her attorneys want the court to see it. They paint a picture of a woman living under a shadow of fear long before September 8, 2025. They allege a campaign of threats from Romica Blackmon, Relentless phone calls, texts, and most chillingly, a threat allegedly made to Holly Johnson's own grandmother. The intent to kill Holly. They claim an order of protection was granted months before the shooting, a fact they say proves Holly sought legal recourse against this perceived danger. Then, they get to the day in question. Their timeline, supported by traffic and pod camera footage they cite, is precise. Romica had just dropped her son off at school. Holly, having spent the night with Carlos Smith, was being driven back to her own car. According to the defense, Romica then made a sudden U-turn, double-parked her car, blocking them in, and approached yelling, "I told y'all I was going to catch you."
That. But we have tried to get the other side of this. Obviously, we heard from Carlos, who was there, who is a survivor, a person who lived to tell the story. And we can't talk to Romica because she's not here. And so we haven't been afforded the opportunity to talk to Quadejah about what happened. But they're saying that 4 minutes after Romica dropped off her son at school, that she was driving in the opposite direction of Quadejah and Carlos. Quadejah was going back to her car, which was parked nearby, because she had spent time at Carlos's home. And according to them, Romica then makes a U-turn in the middle of the street, and that is where you see her car double park. And according to them, this is the exact quote from them, and it will be in my report this evening, that when Romica approached them, she yelled, "I told y'all I was going to catch you." And so for Johnson, because her 6-month-old at the time was in the car, according to her lawyer, is saying that was enough. The previous threats, the demeanor of making the U-turn,
The protective order,
and what was said out there that day was enough for Johnson to fire her legal, rightful owned firearm. So yes, we are hearing from the other side. And again, that's our job to tell all the sides. So
absolutely.
For Holly Johnson, they argue, with her 6-month-old infant in the car, a history of threats, and this sudden, aggressive confrontation, the line was crossed. They frame the gunshots not as an act of aggression, but as the final, desperate act of self-defense. But here's where it gets legally fascinating. The defense boldly states the state's case is built on sand. They point out there is no single video that captures the entire shooting. They highlight conflicting statements between witnesses. And they keep returning to that star witness with the headphones, questioning the very physics of her perception. A trial is only as strong as its witnesses. And in this case, the witness landscape appears to be fraught. We are hearing reports, serious reports, of witness intimidation. Some individuals are reportedly scared to testify against Holly Johnson, with some pleading to remain anonymous. This creates a fog around the case, a sense that the full truth is being pressured to stay hidden. If witnesses are afraid, can a trial truly be fair? This is a question that now hangs heavily in the air. And then there's Carlos Smith, the man at the heart of the tragedy, the father to children from both women. His role has taken a bizarre turn. Reports from the courthouse indicate he was refused entry to the proceedings. And the word is, that request came from none other than Ari Williams, his former attorney. Let that sink in. The defense team for Holly Johnson reportedly barred the prosecution's key witness and the victim's former partner from the courtroom.
Why?
The 20-page document offers a possible clue.
So I wanted to come on really quick to give everybody the exact update. So what I'm going to do is tonight, well, not tonight, but early evening, I'm doing a live with Ebony Paralegal. And that's where we're going to break down all the other information. So what I will say is this. A lot of the in-depth information, either no one just cares to read it or they're just not putting it out. Okay, so a lot of the information that I share, you probably haven't heard it anywhere else, okay? Just like nobody has really talked about the change in the leadership of the attorneys. So, you know, the more you learn, the more you grow. So I just feel like it's kind of important for us to talk about these little things. So One thing that's on my mind, even though we're going to wait, is evidently Carlos may have not gotten the memo. He probably didn't get the memo that the defense is serving him up on a silver platter with the apple with the apple in his mouth. Okay, they're serving that man up on a silver platter because at this point, who else can they get to help them to how else can they get her any reduction of time? Nobody else was there that was a part of it. There's nobody else to shift the blame on. Looks like he was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. And if he was going to plot something like that, then maybe, and that's alleged, okay? If he was going to plot something like that, maybe, in alleged, like I said, maybe he should have just made sure he wasn't there. Because now it's about to get messy. I just have a strong feeling that he probably is feeling like he's losing control based on what everybody else thinks because he couldn't get into court. And I heard somebody say that he said Ari was his lawyer and she was like, don't let him in. Why you can't come in, Los? Because you about to take this blame. We snitching on your ass. You're getting told on. You was the main reason. That's what I think. All alleged, I mean, whatever. Justice is smelling so sweet. It's so beautiful. The air is so sweet where we are. Justice is smelling so refreshing. I would just love for them to just go on ahead and just arrest him. Send him to jail. I wouldn't even care if most of the content creators never went to jail as long as he did. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So how many people think that he didn't get the memo about the direction that Mr. Murray is taking this case?
Reading between the lines, the defense's strategy seems to be subtly, or not so subtly, shifting the focus. The narrative of a jealous woman-on-woman conflict is being recalibrated. The new suggested picture? That Carlos Smith might have been more of a puppet master than a passive bystander. There are whispers, strong whispers, that the defense may be preparing to throw Carlos under the bus, as the American expression goes. They might argue he manipulated the situation, that his actions or words fueled the fire that led to the fatal moment. Could he even face indictment himself? The possibility is now on the table, a stunning twist that no one saw coming just a few weeks ago. So, where does all this leave us? The next court date is today, January 8, 2026. The judge will consider this forceful motion for release. Will the arguments about a threatened young mother, questionable witness accounts, and a lack of conclusive video be enough to grant Holly Johnson home confinement or electronic monitoring? Or will the judge look at the 5 new murder charges, the gravity of the loss, and the allegations of witness intimidation and say the risk is too great? The possible outcomes are starkly different. If released, the entire dynamic of the case changes, the public perception, the pressure on witnesses, the strategy of both legal teams. If she remains detained, it signals the court believes the state's case, at this preliminary stage, is simply too strong to ignore. But beyond tomorrow, this case is now a labyrinth. The defense, under John Murray, has shown its cards, attack the witnesses, amplify self-defense, and potentially implicate Carlos Smith. The prosecution must now reinforce its witness statements, prove intent beyond a reasonable doubt, and navigate the murky waters of alleged intimidation. This is why we follow these stories to the end. Because the first draft is never the final one. What looked like an open and shut case is now a complex legal drama with shifting allegiances, contested facts, and a defense playing a very bold, very smart game. The story of Romica Blackmon and Quadejah Holly Johnson is no longer just about what happened on a street in September. It's about the law's struggle to find truth in a mess of human conflict, fear, and contradictory stories. We will, of course, keep you updated on every development. The outcome of today's hearing could be a major turning point. Now, we turn it over to you, the true crime Unravelled community. What's your take? Does the defense's focus on noise-canceling headphones and conflicting witness statements create reasonable doubt for you? Or is it a clever distraction from the simple fact that a life was taken? Do you believe the self-defense argument holds water given the history of alleged threats? And what about Carlos Smith? Is he a tragic figure caught in the middle, or does he bear a responsibility we have yet to fully understand? Your engagement is what makes this channel more than just a broadcast. It's a conversation. So, let us know your theories in the comments below on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. We read every single one. If you want to stay ahead of the curve on this and every other unfolding true crime story, make sure to subscribe to True Crime Unravelled on YouTube and follow True Crime Unravelled TV on Facebook and TikTok. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. The twists in this case are far from over, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Thank you for watching and for being such a dedicated part of this community. We'll see you in the comments.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So, I know there will be all kinds of comments about this story in particular. So, I want to say this. I'm not ignoring your comments, but some of the comments are just straight up negative, and I'm not trying to go down that rabbit hole of negativity. So, I'm just going to read you the facts because that's, to me, is what matters. Now, keep in mind, when I say facts in this case, I'm talking about what was factually filed. Now, some of this is allegations, and I merely mean allegations because this is someone's point of view of what they say happened or their narrative of it without anything else to support it. So that's what I mean when I say facts versus, for example, I can say I was hit by a car, but video may show that Tia Ewing was never hit by a car. So I can say whatever I want, but the facts have to work out for themselves. So in this case, I will try to highlight as best I can these 20 pages. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's a lot. To boil this story down to just that small increment of time that I just did on the news was very, very difficult to pull off. And I'm going to walk you through what Quadejah Holly Johnson's attorney is saying in this case. And that's what we'll focus on. The facts themselves, and when I say facts, this was factually filed. Now, is everything in here fact? We don't know. The court process will prove if it's fact or not. But in terms of the actual filing, this is a court document that was actually filed. And it was actually filed in court on Monday. So the 5th at 3:58 p.m. It has a timestamp on it. Now, I'm not going to publicly put this out because there are circumstances in here and people's names that, in my opinion, deserves to be protected. So I'm not going to get into the who, where, why. There are witnesses, which I have received several emails of people saying that some witnesses have been threatened. Some witnesses' safety have been thrown out there. So yeah, according to them, noise-canceling headphones allegedly were worn by the star witness in this case, one of the star witnesses. Okay. So what I did was boil this down into 8 different slides, okay? I didn't air 8 slides because that would be a lot on TV, but I did boil it down to 8 slides. Instead of doing that, I'm going to go through the portions in which I highlighted that were really like, wow. Okay. So let's start out with this part, and I'm going to try to make this quick. I need to see what time my next hit is. Hold on a second. Okay. say is at 5:30. Okay. So, so one of the things that Ari Williams, who is the attorney for Quadejah Holly Johnson, is pointing out is that I'll read you what it says so that there is no discrepancy in what I'm saying, because I don't want anybody to take what I'm saying, cut it out, and change the context. I don't want that. I want it to be straight from this. So I'm going to read it, but I'm also going to protect people in this. So if there is someone, for example, who is named and they should not be named, I'm not going to name them. Okay, so if there's a witness, I'm not going to name them, because what I don't want to happen is someone to go find them, looking them up, bothering them, knocking on their door, because they're a witness. Whatever they think they saw or say they saw is what their narrative is. We can't change that. And that's not our job. And that's not your job. So for those of you who I have been sent several things about people trying to intimidate witnesses, that's not your job. Let the legal process play out. That's what you're supposed to do. Let's get to it. So page 3, and this is stuff that I highlighted that I thought, oh, that was important. It says this new information. So since Ms. Johnson's last detention hearing, counsel has since had the opportunity to speak with her family, review discovery, and understand more about the case than previously proffered, as well as Mrs. Johnson's background. This new information constitutes a change in circumstance sufficient to warrant a redetermination of Mrs. Johnson's detention status, where this court solely relied on allegations that were made against Mrs. Johnson to initially determine her custody status. This court should reconsider its ruling and order less restrictive means. The state is unable to meet its burden of proving by clear and convincing evidence that the proof is evident and presumption is great that Quadejah Johnson in fact committed this offense. The circumstances and facts of this case do not weigh in favor of any of the factors courts consider when determining whether a defendant poses a real and present threat to the safety of any person. Okay? I went on to highlight, in establishing self-defense, the defendant must show some evidence that unlawful force was threatened against them, the danger of harm was imminent, the defendant was not the aggressor, that she actually believed that a danger existed, force was necessary to avert the danger, and the type and amount of force was necessary, and that her beliefs were reasonable. And then they cite a previous case, so that's precedent, which is a previous case that they're using to argue that point in this particular court filing. Here's another portion where I highlighted. There are other parts of this, but I'm just giving you, the cliff notes here of what was highlighted. What the state has failed to capture and sensationalize throughout the reporting of this case is the reality and truth. The victim had consistently and through various means threatened the use of unlawful force against Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson, her closest friends, her family members, all have been subjected to the victim's incessant and concerning harassment, whether that be via unsolicited calls or text messages. Johnson was continuously being threatened by the victim on her cell phone to the extent that Ms. Johnson had to block the victim's phone number. The threats from the victim were relentless, even having gone so far as to find Mrs. Johnson's grandmother's phone number, calling her grandmother and making it clear that it was her intent to kill Ms. Johnson. Okay, so here's the portion about the order of protection. So we found an order of protection that was not served. According to them, them being Johnson and her attorney, they have something else. So maybe this is an additional filing. Order of protection against the victim in December 2024. The order of protection was granted July of 2025, a few months prior to the incident. The victim was served with the order of protection, was aware that this order of protection was placed against her. So there you go. That transcript, a copy of transcript for June 18, 2025 hearing regarding the order of protection was tendered to the court of Ms. Johnson's initial detention hearing. That transcript illustrated, that was my boss. That transcript illustrated the victim's inherent aggression and hostility not only towards Ms. Johnson, but towards the court as well. The court frequently asked the victim to stop and that she was not doing anything to help her case of why Ms. Johnson needs an order against her. Hence, Ms. Johnson has indeed shown and made clear that unlawful force was threatened against her. Further, the danger of harm was imminent where Ms. Johnson reasonably believed that a danger by the victim existed and the use of force was necessary. Okay. Let's get into the day of what happened, and then I'll kind of fast forward through because there's a lot. Okay, so further, the danger of harm was imminent where Ms. Johnson reasonably believed that a danger by the victim existed and that the use of force was necessary to avert danger that the victim presented on the morning of September 8th, 2025. Hold on one second. Okay. After having spent the weekend at the residence of her 6-month-old child's father, who you know to be Carlos Smith, Miss Johnson and Smith drove in Smith's black Mercedes to where Miss Johnson parked her car. Footage captured from the entrance of the school showed the victim heading inside the school building with the son she shared with Smith. This was at 8:51. The victim was then seen exiting the school building at 8:53. At approximately 8:56, Smith's vehicle was captured coming from an alleyway, turning left onto State Street and turning right onto Cermak. Smith's vehicle was double parked 2 car lengths in front of Mrs. Johnson's vehicle facing westbound. In moving her child from the rear seat of Smith's SUV, Miss Johnson placed her child in the back seat of her car. 4 minutes after dropping her son off and exiting the school building at 8:57, a white Kia sedan driving eastbound on Cermak is captured on camera making a U-turn facing westbound on Cermak. The victim owned that Kia. The victim blocked Mrs. Johnson's car by double parking her white Kia on Cermak facing westbound. Now, Miss Johnson and Smith did not invite the victim over. The victim took it upon herself to approach Miss Johnson and Smith in an unsolicited manner, yelling at them, saying, "I told y'all I was going to catch you." Now, that is according to a witness who apparently, and this was also captured on body camera, a witness was saying that Carlos Smith was speaking to officers on scene. And that's what was said, according to him. Carlos Smith, and according to this witness. An argument ensued between Johnson and the victim. Smith noted that Miss Johnson pleaded with the victim to please leave me alone. That's Carlos's narrative of things. Notably, yes, and this is highlighted, I'm not going through all of it. Notably, yes, September 8th, 2025 was the first in-person encounter between Miss Johnson and the victim. However, irrespective of it being the first in-person meeting between Johnson and the victim, the encounter absolutely was enough to cause Johnson to be fearful of what the victim could do to her, especially given the victim's history of violent threats against Miss Johnson. And they cite December. They cite a date and time. All right, I gotta drink some water. I think I'm a little lightheaded here. All right. Miss Johnson reasonably believed that the use of force was necessary to avert the danger that the victim was posing to her and her child. The state has also failed to prove, this is according to Johnson's attorney, that Johnson committed the offense when improperly relying on uncorroborated witness statements that is not supported by video evidence. It goes on to say, yet the state is unsuccessful in bringing forth reliable evidence suggesting that Ms. Johnson committed the offense of first-degree murder. Essentially, there is no video evidence at all capturing the shooting, either from the pop camera at the intersection or from bus footage. Witnesses 2, 3, and 4 are all independent of each other. None of the witnesses observed the events of September 8th in its completion, and their statements are entirely inconsistent. All right. So here we go. They go on to talk about these noise-canceling feature headphones that one of the witnesses had on, and that witness's statements were inconsistent when you compare it to other witnesses' statements, and then they question, because that person had on their headphones, what they actually heard. They say that this witness is wearing large, thick headphones over the head. Such headphones will make it impossible to hear exactly what was being said. When other witnesses that did not have on headphones were unable to hear exactly what was being said. I'm just going through the highlighted parts here. All the evidence presented to potentially incriminate Ms. Johnson is circumstantial and cannot meet the state's burden. Where the state fails to meet its burden of proving by clear and convincing evidence that the proof is evident and presumption is great, Ms. Johnson in fact committed the offenses she is being charged with. This court should release Ms. Johnson from pretrial detention. And so it goes on to say
It talks about the shots, inconsistencies with if there was a pause in between the shots or not. We also learned that, according to this, Ms. Johnson was about to begin dental school and that she had a